Okay, so we're at the halfway point of the season. So let's take a look at where all of the teams stack up at this point. And we're going to run through them based upon constructor standings. So Red Bull, what can you say about them? That hasn't been said. They're the best team on the grid, and they are dominant. They have twice as many points, more than twice as many points, than the next team up, which is Mercedes. And I just think that if Sergio Perez could figure out qualifying and practices, then they would be just 1-2 every race at this point. I don't think Perez can compete with Max, but I think that if they were looking to keep a number 2 at this point, he's not a bad option. They're looking at Daniel Ricciardo and possibly Yuki. I would love to see Yuki in the Red Bull. I would love to see what he could do in a real car. But I think that for now, Sergio Perez is going to get the job done for them. I'll give Red Bull an A. You're the best, and you're miles above everyone else. And we move on to Mercedes, which is kind of I don't know. Yeah, they're the second team in the standings, but they are a long ways away from Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton has had some good races. George Russell has had a rough go of it at times. And especially in practice and in qualifying, it's really tough for him to compete right now, I feel. But, they're still top drivers. They're still a top team, but the very top is just so far from them. It's crazy. Mercedes, let's give a solid B. A solid B. You're competing against the best, but the car looks like crap at times, and I can't really necessarily propel them into A because their drivers, I think, have underperformed at times, so we'll see. Aston Martin. I think that Aston Martin is just falling back as hard as possible. I'm going to give them a C because I don't think we all expected Aston Martin to be where they are, but they're now returning to form. They have the anchor that is Lance Stroll, and Fernando Alonso is doing all he can with that car at the moment, but I think every other car has caught up. So we'll see what really happens there. But yeah, C out of Aston Martin. Ferrari. Okay, this one is a complicated one because at times they look good, but they also, it's Ferrari, They have their issues, and let's see. They're 5 points back from Aston Martin. From the expectations of last year, I'm going to give them a C-. I think that they are underperforming, but I think they have the chance to pull it together, but we'll see. Charles Leclerc, good driver, sometimes makes errors, just because he's pushing too hard, pushing himself. The team has terrible communication, and the strategies are just, I don't know. You have Mickey's going over to AlphaTauri to become their team principal, so they're losing some of their brain trust there, but who knows what happens, to that team. Is Mickey's an issue? I don't know. They seem to hold him in high regard. But Fred Vasseur coming over from Alfa Romeo has not been the shot in the arm that I think they thought it would be. So let's talk about Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz has had an up and down season, and I think he's frustrated. I think he considers himself a good driver as well. And at times he's outpaced Charles, but they've allowed him to, they've kind of forced upon him, I should say, the idea that he has to be a supporting role. And I think Carlos is kind of past that at this point, so we'll see. But yeah, C- for Ferrari. McLaren, man, if we could talk about most improved from the beginning of the season, I think that would be where McLaren shapes up. I think that McLaren's a solid B right now. I think that they have two really good drivers, and their car's only getting better. Lando has had some good finishes, and Piastri is really coming into his own. He's a rookie still, so there's only so much we can expect from him. I think that he's going to continue to challenge, and I think that we're going to see years of talk about Oscar Piastri competing for championships, especially if McLaren can give him a solid car to drive. Alpine just looks so silly letting him go at this point. I mean, it's just, but we'll get to Alpine in a moment. But yeah, I would say a B, a solid B. They've, you get points deducted for the bad start, but you improved so much that I think that you deserve to be up there in B territory. And let's get to Alpine. What a mess. What a mess this team is. Just so many, and they could say, oh, they left the team. No, they got fired. With all the people that have just, I said it in a previous video, which you can catch right over here. Alpine was in trouble. Otmar is not a solution to anything, in my opinion. I think that the way he failed with Piastri, the way he failed with Alonso, they brought in Gasly, and I'm not going to condemn Gasly, but I think that just not a great offseason, and you bring in a good driver, but a driver that, when brought up to a bigger team, has not excelled as well. Yeah, I've got to give them a D, especially for their communication to their drivers, to keep it clean with each other, to be aware of each other. They've had too many double DNFs, and it's pretty terrible. Ocon's had his issues with penalties and everything. He did get a podium, but geez, just not great. Just a really, really awful experience for a team right now. Yeah, D. Alpine deserves a D at this point. Which brings us to Williams. And they're not in last place, and they have points. So obviously we think that I think that Williams is on the rise. I think James Vowles is really putting together a team and making the changes necessary as team principal to really get that team to the next level, to get it back to where it once was. And having Alex Albon, who I think is tremendously talented, is really helping. I think Logan Sargent being a rookie, I think if Logan finishes the races and isn't in last place, I think that's the most important thing at this point for him. I think that he just needs the experience, and he might come into his own, but we'll see. But yeah, a B for Williams. Williams has been really good, and has really shown a lot for what they've been working with. Who's next? Haas, a D. Definitely a D. This year feels like a step back. Hülkenberg has shown that he does belong in Formula One, but that car has no race pace. It only has one lap speed. It's pretty awful to watch Haas as an American fan and being like, oh yeah, they're the American team. No, they're not. They're not. I would say that Williams is more of an American team than them at this point. They have an American driver, and they're owned by an American company. But Haas is just, man, I don't know. They just do not look good. The car has no race pace, and Kevin Magnussen is just invisible in these races unless he has a DNF. He's just Nico does compete here and there, but it's really hard to see them coming through. Even when he qualifies well, he drops back during the race and he has no pace. Let's get to Alfa Romeo, right? They're not good. They're not good at all. I think that they had one weekend in which they started looking like they had life, but they just put them in the same group as Haas. Even when they look good, like in practice and in qualifying, they fall back during the race and they're invisible. Bottas is just not where I thought he would be. And we forget that Valtteri was really good. And he didn't just have a good car with Mercedes. Valtteri competed when he was with Williams and everything. And I think that he can compete. This Alfa Romeo just is a trash car right now. And so, let's see. So, what did I give Haas? I gave Haas a D. I'll give Haas a D. And I'll give Alfa Romeo a D as well. Yeah. I don't think that they're any better. I don't think that they're showing anything, really. And then we get to the last place team. My team. AlphaTauri. And this will be the one team that I give an F. And it's not just because they're in 10th. Sometimes you can have bright spots and be developing even in last place. But AlphaTauri, if it wasn't for Yuki and them bringing in Daniel Ricciardo, would have nothing worth talking about. The way they handled De Vries and the way they allowed, the Red Bull man. Well, I mean, I guess they aren't really allowing it, but they bring in Daniel Ricciardo, who is basically Nick De Vries 2.0 right now. I mean, have we seen anything different over the past 2 races? We haven't seen anything out of Daniel that we didn't see out of Nick De Vries. Now that could change, obviously. And I'm a big Ricciardo fan, but I think that the way they handled Nick De Vries is just stupid. I think you give him the season. I mean, like I said, Nikita Mazepin got an entire season. And I understand that his father was a big part of paying for Haas, but yeah, I can't stand the fact that they did that. Nick De Vries deserved better. He should have gone to Williams, but he didn't. He chose AlphaTauri, and he chose the wrong car. Yuki has been the bright spot, but again, they haven't scored enough points. They've got 3 points. Yeah, I just think that I don't think the AlphaTauri deserve any good grades, even though I like Yuki. Yuki doesn't get an F, but this team gets an F. So that's where we are. What do you think? Are these grades spot on? Where do we see them going from here on out? I'd love to know what you think in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. If you like what you saw, please feel free to give a thumbs up and a subscribe. And I do appreciate all of you again. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you take care. Bye.